Welcome to episode 6 of Live Life by Design. I am your host, Nicole Parato, and today I have a very special guest. This is our first male guest and my husband, Stephen Parato. Stephen is a spiritual author, conscious copywriter, and guide to those who want to write books. He has been called the Soul Writing Guide. Stephen has a unique book writing approach that goes beyond the typical tactics and structure of writing a book. He helps tune you in to your inner wisdom and express your unique voice. Ooh, feeling so much energy coming in. You guys are not going to want to miss this episode. Stephen believes everyone can write a book and that the book chooses you. He believes that we can all be a divine channel for spirit. If you are open, spirit will work through you to get important wisdom, knowledge, and storytelling into physical form. Stephen is the author of Sozwik, a story about an interdimensional shaman that comes to Earth on mission. This is such a good book. Stephen believes that this book was channeled through him to activate you and bring in higher levels of information that would be hard to digest in a non-fiction form. I believe that Stephen's writing this book is what brought us together, but we'll talk more about that throughout the podcast. He has also written Information Alchemy and a book for you. I believe these are handbooks for the changing times we are in. Stephen's writing is unique and designed to spark the divine within you and activate higher levels of consciousness. He is also an avid journaler and has several journals to help people connect with their soul and emotions and articulate their unique wisdom. I believe Stephen is here as a steward of humanity's spiritual evolution. Welcome, my dear husband, Stephen Parato.
I like what you did with that intro.
Do you?
I'm honored.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we decided to do this, and I'm following the guidance of spirit for the order of my guests and how this wants to flow. And I just think it's so perfect because Bernadette was on last week and she was talking about book writing and bringing your message to the world. And I really feel like that was building the energy to get ready for the viewers and the listeners to take this in. So if you're listening to this on Spotify and Apple, you can also watch it and see Stephen and I on YouTube and any of the other people that I've had on guests. So make sure that you subscribe. I'll put that down in the show notes. And today it's going to be super powerful, guys. And I want to say that I got to ground right now. I got to ground the energy in for us because the work that Stephen and I are here to do as a couple is to help you come into your power and come into sacred union within yourself. And the weaving and the activations and the gifts that you're going to see go back and forth through both of us is going to inspire you and activate you to do your own healing work and to forgive and release some of the stuff that is holding you back from standing and creating in your full power. Ooh, you feeling this, Stephen?
Mm-hmm.
So let's all start by just closing our eyes and sitting upright. And I really want everybody to place their hands on their belly or their heart. You decide, okay, because that's going to be where you need to come into your power. Some of you are like, I need to come into my personal power and speak my truth, so it's going to be your belly. And some of you are like, I got to learn how to create more from my heart and have more pleasure and joy in my life and not take myself so seriously. So wherever those hands need to be, let them rest there. And let this conversation alchemize the doubt and the fears that you hold within that keep you from writing your book, that keep you from getting your message out there, that keep you from sharing your gifts. Stephen, would you like to add anything to this field before we prepare?
I just invite everyone to feel gratitude for the present moment and be present and allow this conversation to deepen that and inspire you from that grounded, present place.
And I'm inviting so much golden energy in, as if everybody who's watching this is joining hands and we're connected through the frequency of love and creation. That there's a thread, a golden thread connecting and weaving through all our hearts to let us know that we are all connected. We are all connected, and when we're all connected and we do work like this, we tap into the field of possibilities, and we can create and speak from a higher level of intelligence, divine intelligence. And that's the gift that happens when you open yourself up to write a book or let the book write you. So Stephen, I really want to talk and dive in to this masterpiece, Sozwik, because I believe, and I know you believe, that this book wrote you, and that Sozwik is actually an aspect of you. And for those of you, I'm going to take you back to the beginning. Sozwik is an interdimensional shaman.
Sasquatch too.
And he's Sasquatch. So I'll let you speak to that.
Okay. Well, about the book writing me, the signs and synchronicities and messages around that book came in from every direction throughout the course of years. So many different themes. I would get people saying the same theme to me multiple times, and I would just run into situations that would lead me towards the idea of that book. So after a couple years of that happening, like the Sasquatch themes, shamanism themes, all of that, I couldn't help but write the book. It was like I had to. It was coming up so much. The idea would not leave me alone. It wasn't something like, oh, that's a cool idea, let me start writing. It's like the idea and different parts of the idea kept making themselves known in my life to the point where I just couldn't avoid it. So that's what got me into outlining and then writing the book. And then what you said about Sozwik being an aspect of me, I didn't even realize that until recently. When I was doing it, you find yourself, when you write stories especially, you put parts of yourself in different characters. So different characters represent different parts of you. Even though it might look really different from yourself, every character has some aspect of you or mirrors you in some way, or acts as like a desire you have or a goal you have, or even something you're ignoring. So Sozwik is very much like myself. And there are other characters in Sozwik that represent different parts of me, but it's also archetypes within everyone. Do you want me to get into detail, like with Soswick himself, or what?
Not yet. I actually would like for you to give us some examples of where this story was showing up in your life before you wrote it. Because I'd like to share how I'm connected to the Sasquatch afterwards so we can put this thread. And anybody else who feels connected to Sasquatch, you're going to get activated throughout this process because it is a tribe, it is an aspect of many of us. Go ahead.
Okay, first, I've always been intensely interested in Sasquatch. Like when I was a teenager, I would read encounter stories like for hours at a time. In like the earlier days of the internet, I would find those encounter stories and I was so fascinated by it. I'm like, there's something going on here, and it's something that's so mysterious and intriguing, and it's not just a purely physical thing. Like I could tell that a lot of these encounter stories had like spiritual elements, or there was a lot of mystery around it that made it much more than a purely physical phenomenon. So that was very kind of like the foundation of
Mhm.
that. And I've always been interested in that. And then also things happen, like a friend of mine told me once he heard a theory that Sasquatches were from another planet. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And like I took mental note of that and kept that in the back of my mind. Another time, the idea, I was at a friend's house and he had like the letter magnets on his fridge. And I just like, I like meditated and I was like, let's see what I spell. I meditated, closed my eyes, and moved a bunch of letters and it spelled Soswick. And I was like, that has Sasquatch vibes after I
So,
spelled that. And that was around the time when I went to, I forgot the exact name, but the Museum of Cryptozoology in Portland, Maine. And that very much Sasquatch oriented. So those were different aspects. Another example is when I was going hiking once by myself. I was making my way back toward the trail and I heard like the whoosh of a car in the distance. And when I heard that, I'm like, imagine being like a Sasquatch and hearing that for the first time, like a car in the distance, and being like, what is that sound? So like it was just so many things like that that kept adding bit by bit to that, to the point where it like stacked up so high that I'm like, okay, I need to organize this into a story and incorporate all of these things in the form of a book.
and as you're just speaking all this, it seems that Soswick was trying to communicate you since to you through all of this at such like there's so much energy, excuse me. um, at such a young age. And I mean, if we could all just take a moment and even just say Soswick out loud, like just say, let's say it, Soswick,
Sasquatch.
Soswick, Soswick. It's really powerful, grounded, earthy, and there's a lot of tree energy. Like when I say Soswick, I think of tall trees, the most ancient, wise trees, and so much greenery and richness and depth and earth, the element of earth. So I want us all to feel this frequency of what is in this book, Soswick, right now, by saying out loud, Soswick. And I want to share that I live in Saratoga Springs, New York, and I feel as though I'm a guardian to the waters over there. I'm always praying over the waters and walking through the woods and working in the woods there. And before I met Stephen, I was walking and I could feel this presence of what I labeled it as I didn't even know anything about Sasquatch or I didn't know anything about that stuff. It felt like it was like Chewbacca from Star Wars. I felt this energy following me. And it wasn't like I was seeing it with my physical eyes. I see things through my mind's eyes. And I could feel this thing that looked like a Chewbacca walking around and following me, but I was not scared. I felt protected, and it was like a guardian that was working with me because at that time I was working with plants and oils to heal and transform my life, and working a lot with the trees and the water and my own shamanic healing abilities. And so, like, I never told anybody about this. I never, because it sounded crazy, like I'm always in the park and I'm always feeling this energy that's a Sasquatch, and it's friendly and it's a shaman and it's here to teach me and help me. And so then I used to teach Shakti Flow, and Stephen moved here from Oregon, and he came with his roommate Chris to my class. And when I first saw him, I was like, this guy looks so familiar. Like, I just knew he looked really familiar to me. And I definitely knew it was like on a soul level that people that come to me, there's a soul connection. Whoever I meet in this lifetime, or whoever works with me or who comes into my field, there's a soul connection. And so at the end of the class, I knew somebody wrote a book. I didn't know what the book was about. And I remember saying, did anybody write a book recently? Because, we sat in a circle just sharing what we thought of the class. And Stephen did. And he said that he wrote it about an interdimensional Sasquatch. And I was like, shut the blank up, because I've been seeing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the Sasquatch energy was bringing us together. And there's no coincidence that when Stephen moved to the area, he started going to the park all the time, right? Stephen, you were always going to the park, and we both went to the same spots. We both had the same spots that were our favorite spots. And Carista Spring, that whole area over there, I was always in that area. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was like the Sasquatch were bringing us together, being like, you guys at some point are going to talk about this and bring forth the wisdom of what we're here to share. And so that's what I want to talk about now is, can you talk about Sozwik's shamanic abilities? What are Sozwik's gifts?
The first one, we'll start here because you mentioned it, is communing with the trees. Plants in general, but especially the trees. And I've always had a deep connection with trees. There's always been something about trees that I've been drawn to. And I love, like, even hugging trees and meditating with my back against trees. There's some deep wisdom and a deep presence to trees. And Sozwik and his race in general, they work so much with the trees. A lot of their lives are based around trees. Like, they build homes that are basically tree houses. They communicate with trees all the time. So that tree relationship and the tree communication is a big theme in Sozwik. So that's one, communicating with plants and trees especially, and then using that wisdom that they convey to heal themselves, to create more harmony with other people and other beings, all of that kind of stuff. So that's one. And that also leads to, like, telepathy. His race, called the Jyoti, are very telepathic. They can speak physically like we're doing now, but they also speak a lot through telepathy. And in the book, I call it thought speak because it's a little bit more creative. So they speak a lot through telepathy, and they even speak to some humans who are able to through telepathy. And that is, it's a skill. We can get into this later if it comes up, but it's something that, let's call it like the negative force or the evil force known as the guard is trying to figure out basically, and it can't. This telepathic ability. So those are two. Another thing is the ability to enter what I call the vision space for species. Every species has like this energetic field that's also, it's like a realm, it's a space, it's an energetic space that when you're at a certain level of consciousness, you can consciously enter this space. And it's like communicating in the higher realms. You can enter the space and communicate with others of your species who are able to enter that space too, regardless of space and time. So you can be planets apart and you both go into space and communicate through there like it's a meeting room.
And this is my experience. This is my exact experience with the Sasquatch energy. We would telepathically communicate. And I've never called it the vision space, but that's how I connect to everything that I'm connecting to, and I receive information is I tap into this field, and whatever frequency I'm at, I can tune into different frequencies to tap into different kinds of energies and higher dimensional beings, and also and aspects of myself. So when I read this book, it was very activating of like, oh my gosh, this is already happening. And when you talk about the guard, I feel like that is what's happening now, where those of you who are on the spiritual path, you know that there are forces that try to dumb us down so that we cannot connect to the vision space. So we feel disconnected from spirit. And the guard, I see the guard in this story in Sozwik as exactly that, right? You want to talk more about the guard?
Yeah, it's a force that operates based on control. That's kind of its goal, and almost the only way it knows how to operate is control. And it's a distortion of the vision space. So when the collective field of a species gets really distorted, it turns into what's known as the guard. It's almost like cancerous in a sense. It turns into this thing called the guard that is all controlling. So instead of allowing for freedom and expansion, it just operates based on pure control, controlling even entire species. So at the time of the book, there are two species that are completely controlled by the guard, the Trachul and the Harka. So the Harka are more like the brutes that do the grunt work, and the Trachul, they're more like the devious, cunning, manipulative brains of the operation. So the guard is a force that is control, essentially. And they operate through those two species. And they're also well on their way to controlling humanity as well. And they're trying to control Sozwik's species, but they can't quite figure out how they operate. So that's like the setup and the setting of this, because the guard is trying so hard to figure out the Jyoti, but they don't realize that they're telepathically communicating and that they have all these skills. So it's like frustrating them so much that they can't completely control them, even though they have the whole race contained in a valley, basically enslaved with a fence contained within a valley. And they still can't completely control them. And it's so frustrating.
So the Jyoti, am I saying that right? It's Jyoti, right?
Yeah.
And that's a Sanskrit word meaning divine brilliance, divine light.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so perfect that you chose to name this race that, right? And it's like to embody your divine light and divine radiance and be in your power. You know the secrets of the universe, and even the darkest forces can't figure out how to stop you. And I think if those of you who are listening, we're dropping gems and codes here in a way for you to relate to what's going on right now through this book. And there is so much more.
That's why I do it. Because there are some things that are better conveyed in story than by just listing out facts. And I even surprise myself. Like most of this, I don't I don't like think my way through it. I'm just like, oh, that's a cool idea to incorporate. And then it ends up being like this deep theme that surprises me. I'm like, wow, that's so true. And it's activating different parts of me just by writing in story form. So there's a magic to it because when you write stories, you somehow access this deep intuition and this higher level consciousness. And then when you read stories, it activates you the same way. It activates these archetypes within you, these memories within you, and it activates higher consciousness in a way that if someone just presents you with facts, it just doesn't have that same effect. So that's a big reason why I do it and why I love the journey, because I love surprising myself with it.
I just had to pause for a second while you were saying that, and I was called to open up to the page that we were discussing yesterday, and it was about entering that vision space and making crit, in which is a plant medicine that helps that species connect to the vision space. So I think it's really important for you to share about this crit. Now, when you read this book, guys, if you decide to read this book, it blows my mind the way Stephen talks about the spiraling of galaxies, the sun, the stars, and crit, and all these other things. It's like wisdom from beyond. So definitely, you're going to want to order this. Okay, so back to crit.
So crit, yeah, it's a plant medicine. It's a combination of a bunch of different plants and it's brewed as like a tea. And it's not like it's partly inspired by ayahuasca, but it's not like a crazy hallucinogen. It's mildly entheogenic. So it's not like they start tripping out. It's that it's very relaxing. It's almost like a slight dose of alcohol, but also something that opens your mind and gets you more present. It's like relaxing and consciousness opening. And since they're so intimately familiar with the plants, they know the exact plant combinations to create this tea. And it allows them to deepen their meditative states and more readily access things like the vision state, for example. And it's not required per se, but it helps so many of them, especially because they're being enslaved by the guard. So they're undergoing programming, they're fenced in, so they have a lot going on. So not all of them are so advanced in their shamanic traditions that they can just tap in immediately. Actually, there's very few that can just tap in to different spaces just like that. So they use it to like support and accelerate that.
And Sozwik, the character, he has anxiety. He has a lot of, well, that's what I picked up on. Like, as he's being sent off on this journey to Earth, he's having anxiety from feeling not connected with his family, right? So if you want to speak to that, because I feel like that is important right now, that a lot of people are getting anxiety right now as we feel disconnected more than ever as a species from our true soul family and soul tribe. Like a lot of people are like, let's bring them in.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's a shaman in training. So
Hmm.
he's not like the highest like master shaman.
Right.
And he has a mentor called Goa who is that. He's a very interesting character, and you don't even quite know the extent of Goa's powers. It's almost like in Lord of the Rings, how you have Gandalf, and Gandalf does some things, and you don't know the extent of his powers or even like really where he comes from. So Goa is similar with that mentor wizard archetype, but shaman, I mean, Sozwik is under shamanic training with Goa. So he's still learning. And here's why he goes to Earth. So I'll explain the backstory
Yeah.
just so people understand why he goes to Earth. So the guard has the Jyoti enslaved, basically. And they have this thing because they're so interested in understanding and therefore trying to control the Jyoti. They're like, how are they doing all these things? We can't figure them out. So part of their devious plan is to choose 7 of the most thoroughly programmed Jyoti of every generation and sending them to Earth because they have full control over Earth and they're working on fully controlling humanity, the guard. So they send 7 every generation to Earth and they tell them you can't interact with humans at all or we'll kill you on the spot if we catch you interacting with humans. And they're tracking these Jyoti 24/7. They have ankle bands on them. They have trackers on them. Like they tell them it's a badge, like to say like you've done great, you've won your freedom, but it's really a tracking device. So they're tracking them 24/7 because they're like, okay, what do they do when they're just roaming around? If we give them all this space on Earth to roam around, what are they doing? How are they communicating? Like how do they do this stuff that we can't figure out? So that's part of their plan to try to figure out and then control the Jyoti. So Sozwik is one of them who gets sent to Earth because he's able to, with Goa's help, fake like the program. He goes through the programming, but Goa helps him kind of excavate the trauma. He does these shamanic journeys to do soul retrievals and trauma excavation and things like that. So he's not as programmed. So he can operate a little bit more freely and like a rebel on Earth. So
So can you give us an example of one of the soul retrievals that happens in the story?
I can't give the full story because it's it's
Well, just a
like
little bit because I think people here and the listeners are probably curious about what is soul retrieval and why is this important? Can you at least share about that?
okay, so part of it is that he goes through basically guided meditation sessions with Goa, and this is before he goes to Earth.
And
And
wait, hold on, just so everybody understands. They're telepathically communicating, Goa and Soswick, correct? That's how they
well,
communicate.
telepathically, but they're together because this is before he leaves.
Oh, before he
Yeah,
leaves. But
yeah.
they stay connected telepathically once he gets to Earth.
Um, for the most part, but there's some complications, and that's a part of the story. There becomes some complications because of what's going on Earth and things like that. Um, but Goa helps guide him through these meditations, and I'll say it like this: a big part of it, it's when he goes through these meditations, he sees his consciousness as like a building or a mansion with an infinite number of rooms. And he goes room by room, kind of to excavate this programming and trauma that's within him. So that's how he goes about it, and he finds some hidden surprises in a few of the rooms, at least one.
So in this story, there is a woman named Jenny, and she is a character that Soswick connects with telepathically in the vision space. And can you talk about Jenny and how that happens? Because this might help you guys all relate when you're connecting with something, that this is a real thing that is happening. And I just want to shine the light on that for those of you who are choosing to connect in the vision space.
Yeah. As a quick side note, like he does all that trauma work and soul healing to reconcile all these aspects of himself that have been programmed or, kind of dispersed and things like that. So it's collecting different aspects of yourself, and that's why it's important. And writing and reading can help with that too for us. So with Jenny, he actually, I don't know how much detail to give away, but they meet very briefly in a very weird, even life-threatening situation just for a moment in the story. And that's the only time they meet physically. It's just a very quick, almost life-threatening encounter. But then after that, they end up connecting with themselves, connecting in the vision space with each other. And they connect on such a deep level that they start kind of like unraveling surface level aspects of themselves, and they connect through the deepest aspects of themselves. They connect as higher selves together.
And I love this part of the story because Jenny is gifted, and she was gifted since she was a little girl, and she could feel beings coming in. Like, I think they were angelic beings in the beginning of the story that came in to visit Jenny, and she was scared, and she would block it out. And then as she got older, she's a lawyer, she was stressed, she's burnt out, and she realizes she has to change her life and be open to her gifts and start something new. And that is when she has these experiences and connects with Sozwik. So it's just such a beautiful story. And I really feel like, as being Stephen's wife, I relate so much to the character as Jenny. And I really feel like this book and this energy is what brought us together in our sacred union. Because now I want to kind of just change the conversation a little bit, is that we can call our partners in on a soul level. And I remember like praying for somebody who got me on a spiritual and energetic level, and all levels. I wasn't being so specific about what somebody looked like, how old they were, how much money they were. Like, that wasn't really important to me. I was praying for something deep and profound. And I want to just say, when this relationship presented in my life, we were just friends, but we had this common Sozwik thing, and we had this spiritual and this soul connection that grew, where we started to trust and admire each other and appreciate each other. And that had to dismantle our programming in so many ways, because when we first got together, I'm 10 years older than Stephen. So you can imagine the stuff that we got, from family or other people thinking, oh, how's this going to work? I have 2 kids. He's never had kids. Is he really going to want to marry somebody and not have his own biological kids, right? Or is he going to get sick of me because I'm older? All these things that we had to break down and dismantle. And Stephen, even being a stepfather who's never really been around kids, and having to come into that whole thing. So through this dismantling, like in this program of saying the soul retrievals and working through the trauma, I really believe that our union has been the deepest mirror to dismantle the programs that were keeping us stuck. And we still are dismantling together. Right? We're still dismantling.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah, although there's some sunshine and rainbows, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, you gotta look at your deepest shadows. You're forced to confront them.
You are. And I think that when when you actually call forth that partner, some of the deepest work gets initiated.
Yeah. No hiding anymore.
There's no hiding anymore. And learning what true intimacy is and breaking ancestral patterns on both sides has been a huge thing in our relationship of like literally seeing where our parents and their parents and all that stuff that was passed down to us plays out and where we're like literally helping each other move through it.
Yeah. And there's layers to it. It's the ancestral patterns. That's almost like the foundation of the programming. And then there's like the school system and all those, how meant to, we've been conditioned to think certain ways and to give our power away and all that stuff. And then like our own life experiences, they're all stacked on top of each other. So it's a continuous like peeling back those layers to be yourself.
What do you think in our relationship has been one of the most profound lessons for you as a person? Like up to this date, where do you think the biggest transformation has taken
Okay,
place?
this one, it's really simple, but I think everyone learns this on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level because there's an infinite number of levels to this. It's the power of presence.
Yes.
For real.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but there's such depth to it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like in our relationship, and this applies to both of us, we both get this in different ways. If I'm not present, I get a smack in the face instantly, whether by the universe or you're totally not present with me. You're in your head, I can tell. And then I'm like, damn, like true. I need to be more present. And even though I meditate every day, I journal every day, that doesn't mean I'm so good at being 100% present 100% of the time. So it's noticing when I get triggered into overthinking or when I'm thinking about the past or the future. For me, it's a lot of the future. Like I'm planning to do something. And then the same thing with you. Like if you're not fully present with me and I'm like, I have this idea that's so important to me that I want to tell you and I'm saying it to you and I don't feel like you're fully present. It's like, she's not fully present. And so we get these lessons constantly. That's the most powerful lesson because it's so simple, but so deep. It's just the power of presence.
And I gotta say, thank God that we don't have the same wounds. Like we are not trauma bonds because his lessons are much different
Talk
than
about
mine.
them.
Huh? Talk about
Talk
them?
about for both of us.
Okay. So I have had issues with relationships, right? Because my parents were divorced. I was divorced, and after I was divorced, I had some breakups that were really just like, boom, it's over, it's done. And so I have felt like I could easily sabotage and be a runner at certain times in the relationship based on the programming in my family. Now, I want to add this. This is a whole nother story, but I'm going to drop this. In my mom's family, there was cheating. Okay. There was infidelity. And even in my father's family, there was cheating. There was mistresses. Like my dad's father had a mistress. My grandparents had like it was, I'm Italian and Spanish. There were a lot of mistresses and cheating and all sorts of things. So in my body, I was wired to become paranoid of closing down and not opening my heart, that men all do this. Like,
And
or
mistress
that
has stress in it.
literally, that is, mistress has
I
stress
just
in it.
realized that.
But to the point that I would sabotage my relationships instead of letting myself get close and connect on a deeper level. And Stephen doesn't have any of those issues. Like, he's just like, I love you unconditionally. And he holds that love always for me. And those things only come up when I'm really, really stressed out about certain things in life. It's like that narrative comes up and he reminds me of the narrative. And I am here to break cycles in my family and not to live that way, and to be in harmony and partnership, and to experience true love and happiness, and not let that sabotage. Now, there has been supposedly a curse that was put on my dad's side of the family. I'm not going to get so into that around relationships. And I and my sister have done a tremendous amount of work to make sure that the relationships that we have right now are safe, and that we are strong, and that nothing is going to infiltrate that. You've seen it full fledged. You've seen it, and he's always reminded me too. And I think that this is just important to say. And I'm shining the light and I'm being vulnerable because these are real things that get carried down that block people from intimacy and being aligned and opening their heart. And it's in our bloodlines.
Yep. And when you're stressed and fearful, like when your nervous system is like in that fight or flight mode, you switch modes. It's like you stop being conscious and present and like making your own choices, and you go right into like the default of your genetics, like those reactive default tendencies of whatever the fears are, or the beliefs, or the programming is.
Mm.
So I'll share mine.
Yeah.
Mine have a lot to do with
Here
it's
we go. Let's release it all today. And everybody who's
different.
listening, may you have a release. It's good to be vulnerable and share things that maybe you keep hidden.
It's different than yours, but the two main themes that are like big ancestral themes for me that have held me back a lot are self-worth and not feeling good enough. So on my mom's side of the family, it's more of the self-worth and even like a poverty lack mindset, or like not deserving, not worthy, that kind of thing. And then on my dad's side, it's more of like the not good enough. I have to work really, really hard for everything, like that whole thing. So it's those two combined. So that comes up for me of like, if I feel like I'm making mistakes, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or so many different things like that.
Yeah, I remember when we went on a date once and they didn't bring our French fries. And I was like, they didn't bring our French fries. Ask them when they come back around to bring our French fries back. And you're like, no, no, just leave it. I'm like, what? Why would we just leave it? Like, we're paying for the French fries. Like, he had such a hard time using his voice to speak up. He felt like he was putting other people off. And that's been a big thing for you.
And that's something that's like a combination of all of those different things for me. Like it is that combination of both like the worth and the not good enough, but with my own experiences, with my own conditioning of like being in school and teachers being like, you know how teachers can be in school, like the whole sit down and shut up theme. But like all of that combined. If you take all of that combined, one of those things is me not wanting to be a burden on people. That's like a belief that I subconsciously ran, that I just would do anything to not be a burden to people. And if I felt like I was a burden to anyone, even someone who is a server at a restaurant, making them go slightly out of their way to get fries, it would like hurt me to think that I'm causing, like, yeah, causing them to do more than they would have otherwise. So I had a big thing about not being a burden on people.
And I think this is a perfect place for an integration activation. For those of you who watch my podcasts, you know that I deliver healing frequencies and activations throughout to help with the material and the alchemy that is happening in the conversation. So I invite everybody to close their eyes and let's just like really feel our hearts and take some deep, nourishing breaths and letting go of the density that we carry around our relationships and being seen and being heard and being present. Ala soria metia kinia ora itia I. Arasitia o. And today we want to clear some karmic debts around relationships. Alasitia torosotoria I. So any heaviness or burdens that you are carrying of others, arasitia oro I. Give yourself permission to energetically clear and start to release today in this moment. Ara itia ora itia I. And I invite you to just open up a valve in your heart to feel energy just start coming out, dispelling any darkness, heaviness, and illusions that are keeping you stuck. The narratives and the beliefs that have been keeping you in your own prison. Aria iria I. And we're gonna just unlock some of those chains and set yourself free. So go ahead and use your imagination and visualize where you might have chains in the body with locks on them and see yourself unlocking and taking those chains off. And in this moment, declaring your peace and freedom. Declaring your peace and freedom in this moment. And we call forth the holy light, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Presence to clear our heart's chambers of all betrayal and all wounds from past, present, and future. Black magic curses placed upon families from past, present, and future. Poverty spells placed on families from past, present, and future. May we have a release. Go ahead and just release the head back. Open the throat and the heart. Arya Om Nai. Bring the head back to center and declare your peace and freedom. I am worthy of healthy connections. I am worthy of abundance. I am worthy of health. I am worthy of financial abundance. Just feel this, and we're going to call back the power of your voice and the power of you speaking up for yourself. And it's okay to speak up for yourself. And it's okay to self-promote. It's okay. And that actually starts to bring in self-regulation to the nervous system. When you use your voice to speak your truth, you are self-regulating your nervous system. You are declaring your freedom, your peace, your magic. And Stephen, I'd like to invite you to co-create and bring in the Sozwik shamanic energy into this space to heal some of this programming that has been placed upon humanity.
Visualize and feel swirls of holy flames coming down from above into your body, weaving through your body and healing as these flames weave through your body. Healing and weaving, excavating shadows that exist in your body, pockets of density. They weave and they transmute. They dance throughout your body. Just feel this and allow the healing, the cleansing, the purification to happen. And now visualize a sun in your mind's eye. And this sun grows and grows toward you. A warm radiance that clears and transmutes everything. A warm radiance that clears and transmutes everything in a gentle way. You can relax and let this sun grow bigger and bigger and come closer and closer to you so that you can relax into it. And as you relax into it, it gently clears your energy and upgrades you to a whole new version of you in a whole new world. And just smile with your heart, smile with your face as you feel this gentle, easeful transformation. Thank you.
Gorgeous. And we bring in the oceanic waves within the heart just to cleanse the heart chambers even more and activate the sacred waters within you with new templates of bliss, of God and Goddess consciousness, of infinite possibilities, of deeper connection, of radiance. Like just allow the body to expand, the heart field to expand, to send out a signal to your soul family, to your soul tribe, that you are here and you are ready to connect and call forth the ones that you are meant to do life and business with. The ones that you are meant to co-create, lead, breathe, dance, and celebrate life with. So we call that forth now from the north, the south, the east, and the west. May aligned hearts connect and sync up and co-create with potent magic. Beautiful. Let that bliss frequency activate. Let the smiles activate. Let like those kind of unicorn vibes come in. It's a powerful rainbow frequency coming in to let you know that you are in the right place. If you've made it this far and you're still listening to the recording, you are meant to be here. And you're probably meant to read Sozwik. How are you feeling, Stephen?
Like that, like like a rainbow unicorn, but like a grounded and strong version
Grounded.
of one, you know?
And so that is the power of divine feminine and masculine. Stephen brought in the sun, which is the fire, and the masculine, which allowed me to bring in the water, the yin and the feminine energy, right? The bliss frequencies. Same thing with the tree medicine and the shamanic healing medicine of these Sozwik, Sasquatch frequencies that we're both bringing in, right? This masculine structure and strategy, and then the vibe of the Holy Spirit, the etheric connections, the light which transmits information. So this is sacred union within and sacred union play, which me and my husband are here to do. But we've had some massive initiations that we had to work through in order to be able to share from a clear, not distorted space. I mean, right?
Most definitely. And that's also the essence of creating anything, that dance of masculine and feminine, yin and yang, structure and flow. That's how I teach people to write books.
And that's exactly where I was opening this to. And you already followed me. I was like, okay, so now this is the perfect opening for the Divine Right program and the soul writing books. Because Stephen is not your normal book writer. It's not about just the normal tactics and strategies. He wants you to write from spirit, from soul, to deliver your unique voice. And the Divine Right program is a writing program, but he uses like vibrational medicine, the vision space. Literally, the vision space and meditative space is in the Divine Right program. I never put that together to
Yeah.
right now. Holy, I was gonna, you know,
Cannoli.
cannoli, holy cannoli. Seriously though, guys, when he did the Divine Right program, we were talking about this because we help each other with each other's creations, as every relationship should, that's in service together. And he really, people get so confused on which book they want to write, which idea to follow through. And so Stephen has this amazing meditation to connect you to the book that wants to be birthed through you, to connect to the energy of the book. And when I did that practice of his, I had full body chills. And he holds space like that throughout the whole book writing process with the practical systems and strategies. And I'm going to let him share more about that with you. But I think it's really important for all of you that are spiritual and connected to soul and want to deliver power and wisdom and knowledge and pioneer stuff. You need a certain kind of guidebook to do this that tends to your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, because writing a book is a rite of passage. So, Stephen, tell us about why you created the Divine Right program and how it's meant to serve people.
I created it because people kept asking me. It's not it's not something I planned. Like I always just wanted to write my own books, but people would come up to me or message me and be like, "Hey, can you help me write a book? Hey, you've written books, right? Can you help me?" And after a few times of that happening, I'm like, "Okay, I need to pay attention to this." And after that, I helped some people individually, but then I was like, I need to like create a system or formalize a system and share it and make it accessible for everyone. So it's not like I'm just working with people one on one, because I was actually sharing very similar things to everyone who I worked with one on one. So I turned it into a framework, and it has both the yin and yang. It's got a lot of structure and a very clear path because people need it, and your logical mind needs it. It's like, okay, we're moving forward along this path and making progress. So all of that's there, that structure, that framework, that clear-cut path. But there's also, like you said, there's guided meditations, guided writing sessions, like energetic exercises to help you get into an inspired flow state. And even when I'm talking about the more logical aspects, I'm infusing different energetic elements to help you, one, understand it on a deeper level or understand it, and then apply it in unique ways from the soul. Because it's all about tuning in to your own intuition, tuning into your higher self, and then being able to express and articulate it through words, through a book.
And so, as you were doing this program and coaching other people, what is the number one issue that you see people come up against that stops them from doing it, like gives up, right? Because we know a lot of people start programs or hire a coach, but then they don't follow through.
The general answer is self-sabotage. It's all self-sabotage. Like everyone has the capabilities, the knowledge, even the skills, because you build the skills as you do it. You know, it's all practice, but it's always some form of self-sabotage. For some people, it's procrastination, that they never actually get started. Like we've all heard so many people say this, like, oh, I wish I could write a book, or I have this book idea. And then 15 years later, they haven't started it yet. They just keep procrastinating. And this is rooted in, the beliefs depend on the person, but like could be perfectionism. It could be like self-worth, like who am I to write a book? It's always things like that. And then some people, most people don't even start, but then some people kind of start, but then they fizzle out and give up. And that, it's also self-sabotage, but it comes down to a couple things. One is that they don't have a clear system to like move forward with, like to make sure that they're seeing progress. Because if you're not making progress with something, it's hard to keep going. But if you see progress, you're like, okay, I'm doing this. That creates like a feedback loop of motivation. So that's one. Another one is that they just haven't developed a habit of writing every day. People think they could just wait for inspiration to magically strike, and then, you know, that inspiration might only strike once. And they have one writing session and that's it, instead of making a daily practice out of writing. And that's also how you get better at writing. And if you do it every day, it really adds up. And then the other part is not getting intimate with their book idea. This is why I do the meditation, because when you really connect with the idea of your book and feel it, when you really feel it in your body, you become so lit up and inspired to bring it through. That's when it becomes like, my mission is to bring this book through, and I'm going to do it no matter what. I don't care what obstacles come up. I don't care what else. I need to bring this to fruition. And that's what helped me write a bunch of books, like Sozwik, for example. It wouldn't leave me alone to the point where I was like, I need to bring this to fruition. And that was the first fiction book I wrote. So I had to figure out like what writing fiction even looked like, on the spot, on the fly, spontaneously. But I was so motivated to write that book because I was so connected with it. And like I felt the idea in my bones. So that's another thing. Like you gotta connect with that idea and feel it in your bones and use that as fuel.
And I want to add too, because I've taken your Divine Right program, is that people get hung up on not having enough time. And the craziest thing is when you do these writing sessions with Stephen, like he has these time blocks and he holds space for you, you would be amazed of how much can come out of you in a half hour where you are focused and connected and you're just letting yourself write. Another thing that I have seen is that the organization of the chapters and the titles and how to like lay out your book,
Outline,
like just
yeah.
start out, yeah, outline your book, like just start writing and then you can start to figure that out later. I actually, since I've been married to Stephen, I have been writing so much. I write every single day. I journal every single day, and that is a gift from our partnership. Um, I used to always sing to express myself, or make oil blends, or do other things, or just meditate. But the writing has changed my life, guys. And honestly, you've seen the programs that I've put out. I've put out programs, webinars, I've written so much copy. I would not have been able to do that if I didn't cultivate an everyday journaling practice. It got me familiar with my writing voice, and that is important. Like, we all have a unique writing voice. And so I believe that anybody, even if you're not doing this to write a book and you're an entrepreneur and you're putting out copy, because this is another thing he does, is copywriting, conscious copywriting. It's important to find your voice. And to be honest, I have channeled, like, sat there and journal with my coffee, drinking my coffee that will, make like $40,000 when I, or more, when I launch a program. Like, and it just came in, and I trust it. It was downloaded to me, but I created the space to do that.
That's what I love about journaling too, as a practice and a tool, because you can use it for incredibly deep spiritual work and inner work, because it allows you to get so familiar and so aware of your deepest narratives and beliefs and subconscious thoughts. So it's great for the inner work, but then you can also apply it to the external work too. You can journal your way into creating an offer, or creating a book, or creating anything. So it becomes this tool that you can use like on the full spectrum of life, internal and external. That's what's so great about it.
Even writing a newsletter,
Yeah.
it's so much easier now. And I just want to thank you for that, because you exchange gifts in partnership, and writing was a gift that you've given to me, and I really feel like I've stepped into a whole new level of power through you being my husband, um, with writing. And I remember the days when I used to even hate, when I was a microbiologist, sending emails, responding to emails. I used to overanalyze it, and it would take me forever because I was so hard on myself. Did I say it? Does it sound the way I wanted to say? And I used to overthink it all. And through working with Stephen and just having his presence around, you've really shifted that for me. So I want to thank you publicly for that.
You're welcome. I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
that's another like trauma thing that most people have, because that's from like the school system on top of like
Yeah.
beliefs of like self-doubt and things like that. But we're taught that it has to be like grammatic perfection,
Oh my
and it
God,
has to
that's
sound very academic and formal and fancy. So as a kid, over and over again, we're like put in this position where it's like, okay, right, and it has to be perfect, and you have to sound really smart, and that creates a traumatic response in kids. So then when you're an adult and you go to write an email or a blog post or a post on social media, you have that embedded in your nervous system that, oh shit, this needs to be perfect. I need to sound really smart. And that will get in the way of the flow. That will
yeah.
get in the way of
No,
your
it
intuition.
seriously is. It's energy draining instead of nourishing. It's like there's a total difference. It's like dreading to write that post, dreading to write that copy instead of something that excites you and nourishes you. And I tell you, I thank God that I have you, because that's one thing, like, where am I put my commas, my periods, how I do my sentences sometimes. It's like I love having you proofread my stuff. And
Yeah. That's
I think
secondary though.
yeah, I know, but I think that a lot of people get hung up too on that stuff. So I think that's why, like, your wisdom and your support and what you're sharing with the world, with writing, journaling, and your other books are so important for people. So we're going to have the Divine Right program in the show notes for you guys to check it out. Stephen also has a free workshop too. If you're not ready for the Divine Right program, there is a free workshop. And his book, Sozwik, definitely, like, you guys got to check that out. And then the other two books that I mentioned in the beginning, I want to drop here and just touch a little bit on, was Information Alchemy and A Book for You. But more important, Information Alchemy, because we are entering an age where we are overstimulated and oversaturated with information, and it's really hard to process it and find your own voice when you're taking in so much information that it can sometimes be a hindrance instead of something good, because it, especially if you're an empath, you can start to take on so many people's energies and ways of doing things that you don't find your own unique voice. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'll do that quickly. Yeah, it's basically a guidebook to thrive in the information age. So instead of like being a victim to information and being overwhelmed with information and becoming kind of like a mindless consumer where your whole life is governed by information. Like, we're all aware of this with like social media addiction, cell phone addiction, the people that are addicted to the news, like they wake up and like their whole day is based upon what the news told them, and they're all like crazy and thrown off about it. None of us really want to be that way. We don't want to be addicted, but it's beneficial to use information as a tool and not be used by it. So it's a guidebook to helping you do that. So a big part of that is treating information like a diet. So like how you eat, you don't eat constantly and you don't consume junk food, especially all the time, but that's how people roll with information. They're consuming junk information literally 24/7, and that's not healthy for you. So I give a bunch of different principles to help you transcend that and thrive, and a big part of it is creating more. So instead of just being a consumer, focusing on creating from the soul, because it's not just when you create, you're consuming less. When you create, you're much more focused and intentional with what you do consume. So let's say you're writing a book on, let's say, what's a good topic? Say something.
Essential oils.
You're writing a book on essential oils. Cool. So not only are you creating, but you're going to run everything you consume through that lens. So you're going to be like, this is really important to me to write this book. Should I just like scroll through the news or TikTok mindlessly? Or maybe I'll listen to an audiobook on essential oils that's like something that I want to research, an aspect of that I want to research. Cool. It's going to like focus your consumption and make you more intentional with what you do consume. And then of course you're going to tap into your own wisdom. You're going to do a lot of writing from the soul, and anything that helps you connect more with yourself is of course beneficial. So that's a little overview of that.
I love it. And a book for you, just like a little snippet on what that's about for our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, I wrote that based upon one question. So when I was driving one time, I made eye contact with a homeless guy. And I was like, what is the best possible thing I can do? What's the best possible thing I could create to give to him that would change his life? And that's what sparked the idea of a book for you. So I wrote it with that intention, like to give to someone at rock bottom, and it gives them the foundation of what they need to develop themselves and better their life. That's a book for you.
Now, you have told me time and time and again that you believe everyone can write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? And why do you think people should do it this lifetime?
If one person could do it, anyone can do it. If you can talk and speak, you can write. And if you can write consistently, you can write a book. It's completely possible for everyone. And if you have like an idea or a calling in your soul, and most people do, like I've seen statistics that 81% of Americans, I think, say they want to write a book. So the vast majority of the people want to write one, and they do have ideas, but they think they're not worthy, or they can't do it, or they have all these excuses. So like we talked about, that's all self-sabotage. All you need to learn how to do is tap into your inner wisdom and express it in your own unique way. And of course, there's some frameworks you can use and some strategies and things like that. But that is secondary to believing you can, acquainting with the idea, and then creating the consistent space to do that.
So, in your book writing program, do you tackle some of the self-sabotage throughout the program?
Yeah, yeah, that's incorporated throughout the whole program. Hmm.
Is there anything else you want to share about the Divine Right program? Because I think that so many people are being called to write a book and share their stories as a form of healing for themselves. It's like as you write it, it is that rite of passage. You are healing and transforming and coming out and being more visible in a new version of you. And so, go ahead,
Yeah,
Alex.
it's a book has so many different kinds of benefits, and it depends on like what you feel called to do. For some people, it's just a book that they're doing for themselves. Like for some people, it's more just like for their family. Like I have something to give my grandkids or whatever, things like that. But you never know what it could turn into. Some people might be playing small by thinking it's that way, but it could serve so many different purposes. And it could be a huge self-healing, which is an incredible benefit. It could also be something that inspires so many other people, or something that acts as something that builds your brand. If you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you put out a book and that could grow your brand and solidify your authority in your space. A book could also be an amazing income stream. There are books that sell so well that you'd be in awe of the numbers they do every month. Of course, that's not promised, and it could be hard to do, but you never know. The possibilities are there in all of these directions. The self-healing aspect, the brand building, the inspiring people, the creating a legacy, all these are possibilities, and you never know until you try it and put yourself out there.
And maybe Sozwik will become a movie. Seriously,
It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when.
Can become a movie, and I really feel like this would be an epic movie, and there would be more sequels to this. There's so much.
Working on the second one right now.
You guys, I love this book. And so I want to thank you for coming onto my podcast and sharing your medicine and your wisdom with all of us. And as a thank you, I love to give my guests, even though you're my husband and we're always doing work together, a little activation or a mini healing session, whatever needs to come up to propel you on your path so you can move forward in your power and receive all that is meant for you. All that is meant for you. And I wish nothing but so much love and so much abundance and power and richness for you. So, are you open to receive?
Of course.
And I want to just say that this is coming through. This is going to be really healing for any man watching, because there are a lot of programs that men are carrying that are keeping them disempowered in relationships and in their creations. And we just want to bring balance. We just want to bring balance and empowerment to every man and woman that's listening. But this activation specifically is going to help so many men and you. So go ahead and just sit up nice and tall and plant your feet onto the ground, shoulders away from the ears, and let your belly hang, let your belly just hang. Release so much tension out of your body that your muscles start to soften around the bone. Just feel every muscle start to soften around the bone to let the tension release from your system. Feel the eyes soften, the cheeks soften, the larynx soften, the heart soften. Let your body release, 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 release. Just listen to the sound of my voice as you close your eyes in this soft energy, comforting, loving, divine mother energy comes in as you visualize these white, fluffy clouds in a beautiful, clear blue sky, wiping away the illusions of the past, present, and future, and bringing you back to grace and ease and power. You can be powerful and soft. You can be powerful and strong. You can be powerful in your uniqueness. When you accept who you are, more power gets turned on, more light gets activated, more brilliance shines and radiates through your skin. Now bring the awareness to the tongue. The words that you speak about yourself get cleansed. The burdens that you've been carrying of projections from others and your ancestry get cleansed. Trying to hold it all together, let the weight drop off. Roll your shoulders. Perhaps you move your neck from side to side or move your body as we loosen up the fascia, as we work on the kidneys. The kidney, the right kidney, releasing the fear that you are not good enough, that you're not understood, seen, and loved for who you truly are. Allow the water to come in, the sacred water to come in and flush out the right kidney. Ala itia uria itia uria itia o. Aria itia om, cleansing your masculine energy. Aria uro sotoria iria I with this sacred water. Aria uria I, the right kidney. Aria usoria I. Breathe deep. Bringing your awareness now to your lower belly, to your sacral chakra, where we balance your sexual energy, your creator energy, and we remove distortions around intimacy, sex, pleasure, and performance in general. May you release all the pressure that you put on yourself around intimacy, creations, work performance, sexual performance. all of it, and know that you are powerful. And removing some energy and clogs out of the sacrum. There's 8 foramen holes. There's holes in the sacrum. We're going to just weave that out. Let that release any density and heaviness. We're really bringing in some more water. The element of water clearing out the sacrum. That sacral energy being replenished. Feel it, this beautiful turquoise water. Good. You can even visualize the orange color to activate that vibration. Go ahead and roll the shoulders back, squeeze the shoulder blades together, the scapula together. Open the heart. Beautiful. And then just release. Take some deep, nourishing breaths. This activation and this clearing is to help humanity come into sacred balance and harmony. You can be powerful in your feminine energy. You can be powerful in your masculine energy. You can be soft and powerful, and you can be strong and powerful. Enasatia ora kitia ora sitia I. We're just going to pause for a moment and just let the energies continue to work. You might feel your cells vibrating and almost like this sonic massage happening in the cells where your muscles are releasing and you feel really, really relaxed. Really relaxed, because when you're relaxed and your nervous system is relaxed, you give yourself permission to explore more of your power and more of your magic. Beautiful. And just picture your feet in the earth's soil with all the microorganisms in the earth's soil. Picture yourself maybe scrunching your toes in the earth's soil, picking up all the nutrients of the soil and letting the microorganisms communicate with you. Breathe it in, the divine intelligence that is you. Breathe it in, all parts of you. May you call back all parts of you here and now. May they join in the heart space. May all the pieces of the puzzle come in so you can start to see a clear picture of how to proceed forward. It is my greatest honor to serve you. I love you and I thank you.
Thank you.
Do you feel really soft? I feel even really soft just speaking right now.
Yeah. I feel like I can't even talk very loud at all.
That's okay. I know it's like a whispering. And this is the power of my work and energy work and working on a multidimensional level in the body. Like literally going into the body and recalibrating it so you can come in to balance. This is the time for all of you to soften and nourish yourself and feel your power. And from this place of nourishment, you apply the strategy and the systems, and you create from that nourishment and that overflow. It's much easier to create from a nourished state. The ideas that will come in and the clarity that comes in when your body is at ease and recalibrating is much higher than created at a go, go, go. I gotta force, I gotta do, I gotta get this done. My worth and performance is based on how this does or how much money I'm making. We want to really release that paradigm of energy and creation and come back into soul nourishment and fulfillment and creating from source and from our light. Because that creates us to the vision space, that connects us to the vision space where we're hooked up to infinite potential. I think this is a wrap. I can really feel the energies wanting you guys just to ground, hydrate, drink some tea, relax, maybe revisit this again on another day because you'll receive differently. And subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can see this video and all the other podcasts that I'm doing, and subscribe on Spotify as well. And definitely check out all the links in the show notes on how you can work with Stephen further or me if you're called to. And please share your medicine and your gifts with the world, because your soul family, your soul clients, your soul tribe can't find you unless you broadcast in your full authenticity, in your full light and divine expression. Stephen, you have anything to add?
Nope. Just true. I completely agree with what you said, and it aligns with a message I received yesterday. Relax into your power.
Relax into your power. How about we say that 3 times? I relax into my power. I relax into my power. I relax
into my power.
And so it is done. Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.